Chapter 9, Lesson 1, Renaming Fractions to Subtract. So we're done with adding fractions for now, so now we're going to subtract fractions, but we have to regroup, kind of like borrowing, like we did with regular subtraction problems. But now we have to rename a fraction in order to do the problem. So I'm just going to start with a simple problem, kind of reviewing on how to rename or borrow or regroup, whatever you want to call it. 32 minus 24. So we would have to borrow or rename or regroup from the 3. Cross that out, make that a 2, and we put that 1 right over there. So 12 minus 4 is 8. 2 minus 2 is 0, so your answer would be 8. That's kind of what we're doing with fractions. We're going to borrow or rename, take away from the whole number to make a fraction before we can subtract. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here I have 2 minus 1 1/3. Just like with the 32 minus 24, we cannot take, there's nothing right there. We cannot subtract 0 from 1/3 basically. So we have to make a fraction. So what we do is we're going to rename or regroup or borrow from the 2, and that becomes a 1. So now we're going to get a fraction. And the fraction that we're going to use is we're going to use the denominator from the other fraction, and that's going to go the denominator here and the numerator up there. So now we have 1 whole because we borrow from the 2, so we took 1 away, and 3/3 equals a whole. So now you can proceed and do the problem. So 1 minus 1 is 0, don't have to put anything there. 3 minus 1 is 2, and your denominator stays the same. So your answer is 2/3. So you're just taking a whole away from the 2 and putting it over here as a fraction, and 3/3 equals a whole, so that's why we're using the denominator from the other fraction. I'll do a couple more for you. So here I have 4 minus 2 2/3. I don't like the fractions when they're going side to side this way. I like it to go up and down. That way I can see that I'm missing a fraction there. So I need a fraction right over here. So I'm going to take 1 away from the 4. That's going to become a 3. And then I'm going to take that 1 whole and make a fraction here. And again, I'm using the denominator from the other fraction to tell me what numbers to use. So now I have a fraction. I have 2 fractions. I have 3 3/3, and I have 2 2/3. I can go ahead and subtract these. 3 minus 2 is 1 over 3. 3 minus 2 is 1. So my answer would be 1 1/3. Again, I don't like the fractions going this way, but they are like that in some of the test questions and homework problems. So I'll show them how to do it this way as well, but if they're more comfortable doing it horizontally, then they can do it that way, or vertically. So can't take 3 with no fraction minus 1 5/12. So I'm going to take 1 away from here and make my fraction to be 12 because, again, my denominator is going to be my numerator and denominator for the new fraction. So now I have 2 12/12 minus 1 5/12. 2 minus 1 is 1. 12 minus 5 is 7, and my denominator stays the same. So my answer is 1 7/12. So essentially they're just taking 1 whole away from the whole number and using the denominator from the other fraction to make another fraction. Now I have a problem like this as well, 2 minus 7/8. Now there's nothing here, and that's okay because you can take 2 away from 0. 2 minus 0 would just be 2, so we don't need to worry about there not being a whole number there. but we do need a fraction right up here. So again, we're going to take 1 whole away from the 2, that becomes a 1. And then my denominator here is 8, so my denominator for this fraction will also be 8. And my numerator will also be 8. So now my problem is 1 8/8 minus 7/8. And 8 minus 7, subtracting the numerators first. 8 minus 7 is 1. Denominator stays the same. And 1 minus 0 or something there, just bring it down. Your answer is 1. So 1 1/8 would be the answer. So for their homework, they're going to have some of these problems, and I don't believe they're going to have to reduce anything. They're going to start off slow, just so they get the hang of taking 1 away and making a new fraction and subtracting before they have to reduce, I believe. So they should know if they have to reduce when they see the answer, but I don't think they're going to have to. No, looking at the answers, none of these have to be reduced. So it's just getting them used to taking 1 away, making a fraction, and subtracting it. So number 1 says 3 minus 1 2/3. Again, I like to have it go vertically. That way I can see the fractions on top of one another. So I'm going to take 1 away from the 3, make that a 2, take my denominator, and it's going to become my new numerator and denominator for the new fraction. So 3 minus 2 is 1. Denominator stays the same. 2 minus 1 is 1. 1 1/3. Number 3, we've got 4 minus 2/9. 4 minus 2 5/9. Take 1 away from the 4, and that becomes a 3. My denominator is going to become my new denominator and numerator for the new fraction up here. So it's going to be 9/9. So we got 9 minus 5 is 4. Denominator stays the same. 3 minus 2 is 1. So my answer for number 3 is 1 4/9. And here's one more. We got 3 minus 2 3/10. I'm going to take 1 away from the 3 and use my denominator here to make denominator for the new fraction and my numerator. 10 minus 3 is 7. Denominator stays the same. And 2 minus 2 is 0, so my answer is just 7/10. And that's all they're doing for this. So just get practice doing over this, use my notes, and hopefully they'll be okay. So stay tuned for Chapter 2. Thank you.